On March 29, 1998, in Boston, Massachusetts, the Austin era began as Stone Cold's 8-year journey was culminated with WWF Gold. The rattlesnake is striking! The rattlesnake is striking with venom! By God, he's whipping Shawn Michaels like a government mule! Right hand by Tyson! Right hand by Tyson! I know that some of those lines actually didn't happen on that particular night, but the Mike Tyson line did, because JR once again proving on that night and so many other nights before and since why he is one of the most iconic, passionate, and energetic professional wrestling commentators of all time. From being a referee in his early career to becoming a commentator on Bill Watts' television, to going to the NWA, WCW, and then WWF/WWE, and that stint in New Japan that was certainly a thing, and now him doing AEW commentary, he can still channel that passion when he finds something that he wants to sink his teeth into and share the fact that he absolutely loves pro wrestling. He is truly on a different goddamn level, and on that night, he helped make Austin, and Shawn Michaels helped make Austin. But what if Shawn Michaels had decided to not do the right thing? What if he decided to basically go into business for himself? Would The Undertaker have taken his taped up fist and punched him out backstage? Would he have done that? Would Vince McMahon have basically said, "You're fired, Shawn. Ha ha ha. You didn't make my guy, Shawn. What the hell's wrong with you?" Where would Austin's career have gone? Where would the state of WWE have been by the next night? Because had they not made Austin that night, they needed to make Austin. Even though they were rising up, Shawn had to do the right thing. And if he didn't, the question is, well, there's a lot of scenarios we could dive into, or maybe just a few, but let's get to it, shall we? I'm John Rhythm with my real honest thoughts on what if Shawn Michaels had not put Stone Cold over at WrestleMania 14. Okay, that's a bit of a wordy title, probably going to work with it, but that's the theme of the whole damn thing, so there's no way I'm going to cover the careers of both guys up to that point in one video. So it's going to be a surface-based one, and then we're going to talk about, and by we, I mean me, and you guys are going to chime in the comments, and I want to thank everybody for these suggestions for various what-if videos. I have a lot of them written down. I will get to them when I can. I cannot promise that all of them will be done within the next few weeks, but I will try to get to them before WrestleMania. And there is going to be a point where I'm going to have a cool down here, but these are fun. These are fun to talk about as far as history and everything. So you got Shawn Michaels, who was born on July 22nd, 1965, Chandler, Arizona. And he was, bounced around with his family since his dad was in the Army. And he was trained by Jose Lothario. Actually made his debut on October 20th, 1984. Yeah, Bill Watts didn't really see much in him at that point. I mean, I think he was, 8? He was 18, 18, 19. He wasn't really going to be much of anything at that point. But he rose up. He was in the AWA, Kansas City. Very, very brief stint in WWF, back at the AWA, teaming up with Marty Jannetty, the Midnight Rockers. They had a great second run there, beating Buddy Rose and Doug Summers for the AWA Tag Team Championships at the Brawl in St. Paul in 1986, December 1986, Christmas night, actually. And they then were able to go to the WWF. They had, a great run, almost won the tag titles, actually did, but that got taken away, because even though it was a taped show, they didn't bother to just stop tape and fix the ropes and then edit the thing. No, they decided to just write off the Rockers winning the tag titles. And then, even though they had a series of matches at WrestleMania, I believe they won their WrestleMania 7, outing. They didn't win at 5, they didn't win at 6. And then by number 7, by the time we got to later in the year, Marty Jannetty was starting to have he was starting to have his personal issues. Not that Shawn wouldn't have his personal issues later, but then they did the barbershop thing where Jannetty tried to dive through the window to escape. What an act of cowardice. Will you stop? And then Shawn Michaels became the heartbreak kid, the sexy boy. Okay, don't you dare gift that. Don't you dare gift that. Don't you dare gift that. So anyway, yeah, I have obviously no physique at all. I just like to make a goof out of myself. Sensational Sherry was his manager. He won the Intercontinental Championship from Davey Boy Smith, and later in 92, after Davey Boy and the Ultimate Warrior. By the way, fuck the Ultimate Warrior, I'm glad he's dead. I will be doing one on the Ultimate Warrior sometime down the road. And from there, he had won the Intercontinental Championship, held it until he faced Marty Jannetty on the same Raw where the 1-2-3 Kid shockingly beat Razor Ramon, and then he won it back 20 days later. Held it for a bit, got suspended, had the ladder match against Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. And Shawn really shined there. So did Razor. I mean, don't get me wrong. But Shawn was out bound, determined to prove that he could be the guy. Teamed with Diesel. That went belly up. He faced Diesel at WrestleMania 11 and then had his moment where he was the Intercontinental Champion again. Then had to relinquish it after 30 Marines beat him up. It was actually one because Shawn was flirting with the guy's girlfriend or wife or whatever. Came back, won the Royal Rumble for the second year in a row. Faced Bret Hart at WrestleMania 12 in the Iron Man match. Held the championship for a while, and even though he was having really good matches, business wasn't all that great because they, instead of making it the boyhood dream had come true and keeping the same edge that made Shawn Michaels cool, they kind of made him a little bit too, I guess the term would be white meat and everything. And from there, he didn't flounder as champion as far as in the ring, but just as far as self-destructing. He lost it to Sid at Survivor Series 96, won it back at the Royal Rumble 97. Was supposed to put over Bret at WrestleMania 13, but didn't because he had a career-ending knee injury and did commentary on that. Returned during 97, like the summer of 97, and then he won the title in the infamous Montreal Screwjob, where Bret screwed Bret, according to Vince, even though Vince is wrong, and Vince will always be wrong about that, because Vince could have been smart and taken the title off of him before, but whatever. He wanted to make Shawn, and then Shawn, well, he had a match against Shamrock, he had a match against Undertaker at Royal Rumble 98, injured his back. I'm sure he did, but I don't think it was as debilitating. And then the whole thing was, would he put over Stone Cold Steve Austin since he had such a debilitating back injury? And that leads us to WrestleMania 14. But now we go to the Austin side. Austin was born just a week before Christmas in 1964, Austin, Texas. That's kind of fitting, isn't it? Grew up in Edna, Texas. It's funny that he made his debut like almost 5 years later, and he's actually 7 months older than Shawn. Trained with gentleman Chris Adams. So that was September 30th, 1989. Worked in World Class USWA, however you want to say it. He worked in Memphis. And, there's a whole bunch of timeline stuff about that. Got to WCW, was living really lean when he was in World Class, and especially Memphis. And then, as far as being in WCW, yes, he was getting guaranteed money. But as TV champion, he was good. As U.S. champion, he was good. As tag team champion with Pillman, he was gold. Because they, as a Hollywood Blondes, almost said West Hollywood Blondes, that was a totally different thing. That was not a very good team, despite the talent trying. He always felt like he was just, below a certain level when he could have been bigger. Part of the Dangerous Alliance before the Hollywood Blondes. He was doing really well, and then he got injured, and then Eric Bischoff fired him via FedEx, which was a requirement. Just fire him, don't bring him in. Don't bring him in to fire him, just fire him via FedEx. And then he went to ECW, had the promos and everything, Steve-A-Mania and all that. Debuted as a ringmaster in WWF with Ted DiBiase as his manager. That went tits up a little bit later when Ted DiBiase decided to leave to take a big money offer from WCW, and they proceeded to do absolutely nothing with him. I think he was there for, 2-3 years? And after the first couple months, he felt he was supposed to be the benefactor of the NWO, and then Bischoff became the guy to lead the NWO, so why the hell was Ted DiBiase there? Nothing against Ted DiBiase, except for the fact he grifted a whole bunch of money from the Mississippi citizens, but nevertheless, Austin was, going to become Stone Cold. Austin 3:16 says, I just whipped your ass. He didn't instantly get launched into superstardom. A lot of people tend to forget that. He was on the free-for-all against Yokozuna at SummerSlam 96. He was rising up, faced off against Triple H, I believe, at the In Your House Buried Alive in October, if I remember correctly. Faced off against Bret Hart at Survivor Series 96. Won the Royal Rumble in 97, despite the fact that Bret tossed him out. But the referees didn't see him. And what ended up happening is Austin would end up screwing Bret out of a shot at the championship, or out of winning the championship. And that would lead to the actually the submission match was already set, but the added wrinkle of him costing Bret that. And then Bret caused Austin to bleed. They passed it off as a hard way, and then, he passed out instead of giving up. Big Austin moment. I mean, that's one of the most electric crowd reactions to a match at that time. I mean, in the 90s as far as U.S. television, because between WWF and WCW, That was a big deal. That was a star-making performance there. Even though Austin was already on his way, Bret did everything. Even though Austin never beat him, Austin was a made guy. And then from there, he was teaming up with Dude Love, teamed up with Shawn Michaels. They have tag team champions and all that. He did suffer a very, very serious neck injury against Owen Hart 5 years after Austin had done the same move to Masahiro Chono on a WCW New Japan show somewhere. I don't know where in Japan, but it's kind of funny how, I'm not even going to say karma, but just how, time is a flat circle. And no, Owen shouldn't have done that. Austin, I can understand, was, very upset at Owen, and I don't necessarily blame him, even though accidents happen. And he became a bigger star because of that, because he couldn't wrestle, and it's like Vince was like not letting him wrestle. He couldn't wrestle. Hell, you can kiss my ass. The September 22nd, 1997 edition of Raw, on the same night where Cactus Jack made his Madison Square Garden debut to a huge pop, proving that Kevin Dunn doesn't know shit about wrestling. And then from there, he would get back in the ring. He was still the Intercontinental Champion. They would find a way to have that, taken away. Rock would end up winning the Intercontinental Championship. And then Austin would end up winning the Royal Rumble in 1998, where Mike Tyson was there and said, "Cold Stone is my man." Cold Stone. Speaking of, it's no wonder that Tyson and Austin got, along, because they both see women the same way. If you get it, you get it. So anyway, we get to WrestleMania 14. Austin was continuously being, targeted by DX because they wanted to make sure, Tyson and everybody wanted to make sure that he did not get a chance to face off against Shawn Michaels. And then what, of course, happened at WrestleMania 14, that was a really, really, really quick edition of their careers, very condensed version. What ended up happening is Shawn had, and I'm sure Shawn's back was hurt. I'm sure it was. That hard bump into the buckle probably didn't help. I'm not saying the guy didn't need time off, but the guy clearly was so pilled out of his goddamn mind that he needed to go to rehab and needed to get clean. That's probably the main reason why he retired. That being said, he's clean now. Good for him. That's cool. Austin ended up beating him, hitting a stunner finally. It wasn't the most star-making performance because Shawn's back was hurt. And then Mike Tyson punched him out after Mike Tyson was proven to be on Stone Cold's side. Right hand by Austin. Or right hand by Tyson, rather, and then puts the Austin shirt over there, and there you go. And Austin is made. And then a couple weeks later, they beat WCW for the first time in the ratings in nearly 2 years. Say that didn't happen. Say Shawn Michaels had basically just done something where he'd gone into business for himself, and say he hadn't shown up. Now they could have stripped him of the championship. And stripping him of the championship might have actually meant something. That could have been... that they could have put somebody else there. The problem is Bret would have been the guy, but Bret had already left for WCW. They couldn't put Triple H in there. He was facing off against Owen Hart. They couldn't put Undertaker in there. He was facing off against Kane. They couldn't put Mankind in there because what's the point of that? Mankind was, even though he was beloved, he wasn't seen as a main event guy. It had to be Shawn. If Shawn either didn't show up and do the right thing or just had laid down the championship or laid down the goddamn ring and just let Austin pin him like a pre-Bash at the Beach 2000, then that wouldn't have made Austin at all. So right there, yeah, Austin would have won. He would have been the champion, but it would have been flat. If Shawn had decided to try and screw over Stone Cold Steve Austin and roll him up and everything, and the referee had counted that, then Shawn would have left as a champion, dropped the title the next night, and that wouldn't have worked at all. That would have actually been one of the worst goddamn things. And then Austin wouldn't have been made in Boston in front of a pay-per-view, worldwide audience, if that even makes grammatical sense. And Mike Tyson's investment, that would have gone tits up because it had to be where Tyson was going to be outside the ring, was going to have a spot there where he was going to lay out Shawn, because Shawn, for all the times that he had refused to drop a title due to injury and everything, was finally going to be laid out. So all this stuff had to lead to Shawn Michaels being laid out. Now, these are just scenarios I'm popping up in my head. If Shawn Michaels had decided to basically maybe pull an Ultimate Warrior and hold up Vince for more money, don't worry, I'll do an Ultimate Warrior one about that. What if that hadn't happened? Shawn could have done a whole bunch of stuff to basically fuck with Vince. Now, he could have tried to intentionally injure Steve. I'm not saying that that's what he would have tried to do, because for all Shawn's faults, he never tried to intentionally injure somebody. He might have gotten pissed at Vader and stomped on his head and everything, told him, fucking move, because Shawn was a little bitch. But looking at how all this with Shawn needing to go over here, take care of himself, and Austin needing to be the centerpiece, there was no other way other than Stone Cold beating Shawn. He had to beat Shawn. It's just like how Vince felt that Shawn had to beat Brett, so Brett could go over here, go over to WCW. He wanted Shawn to be the guy, but then Shawn had to have his back injury and everything. That I'm not saying wasn't legit. I'm just saying the severity of it, I think, got overplayed because he needed some time to go to rehab. And he couldn't say no, 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 because he had to go. Had any of those scenarios happened, how would the TV have played out? Austin still would have been over. Austin could have been the champion. But if Shawn had laid down, okay, you open up that, maybe you have some decent ratings, you could rehabilitate Austin a little bit, because that would have damaged it, because it would have had to have been he was the ass kicker. He was the guy that came back from a neck injury. He's beating up Shawn, and there you go. Had they had to, say, do a tournament after that, it would have wiped out every bit of momentum that Austin had from the Rumble, and even before the Rumble, but from the Rumble to Mania. So you could have a tournament, you could have Austin win, you could have a one-night tournament, you could have Austin win, and yeah, that would have been cool, that might have led to some big ratings, but then it still would have been that Shawn got one up on Austin when he didn't need to, because he didn't deserve it, because after all that time, he should have put over Austin. Or if Shawn had decided to beat Austin, done something, he would have been punched out by Undertaker backstage and probably put in a freaking hospital, and that would have actually been just absolutely fitting, because even for what I feel about Undertaker now, he was all about business, and he would have done, unless you're Canyon and you're gay and then he caves your head in, or unless you're a young guy and he feels like he should beat you and everything, or if you happen to be gay, or you happen to be somebody that actually has progressive thoughts or wants to play video games, how dare you do that? Undertaker hates you. He would have punched out Shawn, and Shawn would have basically not, he wouldn't have gotten back up. He would have been in the hospital for a while, and Undertaker would have been well within his right to do that, because with Shawn leaving, Austin had to be the victor. That's basically all I really have to say there, because I can't come up with too many other scenarios. I couldn't come up with too many scenarios where Austin couldn't have been, or Austin wouldn't be able to be made without beating Shawn. Because, again, you could do the aforementioned tournament that I talked about, a one-night tournament, and Austin could have won. It could have been a big boost, and yes, he would have eventually had the title, but to win it at Mania was the cherry on top, the way to cement him as the guy. And that's something that Shawn would have taken away. He would have damaged the company long term. They might have not recovered from that, because they were on such a momentum swing that if Austin did not win at that Mania, that might have halted their momentum. And that's when WCW was having their standards and practices deal going on. But they would have ended up having, they would have had another, head start, or kept ahead for a few more months. And then that would have led to Goldberg winning on TV, which was a really big goddamn deal. And hotshotted because Hogan wouldn't want to put him over on pay-per-view, because how dare you, brother? It doesn't work for me, brother. Ultimately, Austin had to beat Shawn at Mania. That much is clear. And there are those scenarios I talked about, but I want to know about the scenarios you guys have to say. Let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, Twitter handle in the description. I'm John Rickland. I'll see you soon.